Frozen in time.
Sorry, yeah.
So fine? Yeah?
I'm back.
Okay, so we are ready to go? Yeah? Okay. So welcome to the Trends Literature series, where we definitely celebrate the power of storytelling and meaningful conversations that bring history, culture, and literature to life, and definitely spotlight the narratives that really inspire and restore with the times, resonate with the times. Today, we delve into the extraordinary life of Birsa Munda ji, one of India's most iconic tribal revolutionaries, whose legacy continues to ignite the spirit of resistance and justice. Joining me today on this most enriching discussion are two most remarkable guests. Tuhin Sinha, the most esteemed presenter of the book Tribal Revolutionary, Birsa Munda, who has long been an advocate for amplifying untold stories from India's past. He's very well known to our forum and he's well known all over, but I'll still like to introduce him a little bit. He's the best selling author of several books, BJP national spokesperson, content strategist known to experiment with various genres. He's, as well as we all know, very, very popular on TV debates, vocal and most articulate in current political
Yes.
issues. Nobody can beat him on all the debates. And I'm a big follower of his. So I watch
Thank
all
you so
his
much. So kind of you, Neeta ji.
discussions. And we have Sunita Pant Bansal ji, the author of the compelling book, Tribal Revolutionary, Birsa Munda.
Thank you.
She's an author of over 40 books. My God, that's quite a tall figure, I must say. Storyteller, mythologist, known for her most best-selling books, Krishna, the Management Guru, Everyday Gita, among others, bringing historical figures to life with care and clarity and depth. So welcome, both of you. It's such a pleasure to see you today.
Thank you.
Great to be on your show, Neeta ji. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. Your warmth and the way you get into the details of the book. I think it's really reassuring. It's amazing. So great to be on your show. And yes, I'm really excited about this new book, Sunita ji. It was Sunita ji's brainchild to bring out a foundational level book. Something which caters to students right from 8 years of age to 13, 14 years of age. And I think the way it has come out with all with all the sketches and it's a very compact, it's a very lucid book. So great to be on your show with her.
Fantastic book, I must say. And thank you, Tuhin ji. I mean, it's for believing in Trends Literature series and for your most unwavering support to all of us here in our team.
Can I add a little thing? Can I add a little something?
Sure,
to
sure,
him?
sure.
Because he always gives me the credit for giving the idea for this book. But actually, the idea was not mine. The idea came from him. It was while I was attending one of his sessions and about his book on Birsa Munda that this idea came to me that, he's so much into this and, he was talking with so much passion that I felt that why can't we distill this passion, bring it down to the younger level, to the foundational level. That's the reason I offered to write this, because I was kind of blown away by his passion for the tribals.
Absolutely.
I was not into, otherwise I was not really into tribals. I was not reading. I mean, there's no reason for us to read about tribals, is there? I mean, honestly, so that's why I felt that unless until we give it to the children, our children, they will never get to know. So that is where actually, Tuhin, I give back the credit to you.
Thank you.
We see a lot of references in respected PM Modi's speeches about Bhagwan Birsa Munda, and he often mentions that. And also with the 150th anniversary coming up, I suppose it is like all over. It is it really deserves the attention that it is getting now. And I've been seeing Tuhin working on this for consistently for the last so many years. So to begin with you, Tuhin, I mean, I know this question we asked you also in our last episode, which was roughly around 2 years back. So what really inspired you to present tribal revolutionaries, Birsa Munda? What did you do?
Exactly 3 years ago, my book on Birsa Munda had released, and I think the reception was absolutely phenomenal. It's gone on to become a cult book. So obviously, post the book, I have also, I guess, far from that passion wearing off, I think I've only grown more passionate about his life. So I visited his village, his birth village, met some of his descendants, met some of the villagers, and that was around the time when I think 2 years back, I also met Sunita ji. Sunita ji had read the book, and we just got talking about it. See, the challenge is to expand, to multiply the book. So, after the successful Birsa Munda, or, the legend of Birsa Munda, the idea is to make it go international. The idea is to make it go to schools. So, Sunita ji has been an absolute expert when it comes to foundational level books, children's books. She has a very compact, very lucid style, very presentable style. And I think, this is a book which the kids in school would really enjoy reading. So for me, I think, I would love to multiply myself many times over. In fact, somebody recently met me with the idea of a Birsa Munda book for 3 to 5 year olds, complete pictorial book with large pictures in it, and that's that, one sentence in one page. So yes, I mean, unfortunately, Birsa Munda had not got his due during his lifetime. He had not got his due much after his death. It was only in 2014 that Prime Minister Modi started invoking the legacy of this great tribal revolutionary. He started talking about his sacrifice, and his life has many layers. It's a story of multiple evolutions every few years. In a lifespan of 25 years, he has probably led, the kind of life which a person would lead at the age of 75. That the number of twists and turns, the number of, the number of avatars he has been in, right? From a spiritual healer to a revolutionary. I think, this book needs to be multiplied many times over, needs to reach out, needs to reach needs to reach newer audiences. And I think that is where tribal revolutionary Birsa Munda would be playing a big part. Our aim would be to make it reach schools, and we are in conversation with certain educational bodies which can help us take this book to school students in school curriculum. Let's see.
Yeah, very, very noble thought, I would say. I've gone through the book. It's
Keeping our fingers,
so,
keeping your really fingers crossed, because this is something, if that happens, that would be really amazing.
Sunita ji, how was your research like? I know you got a lot of input from Tuhin about how did you
actually,
share your insights into your research process and the challenges perhaps?
Research was, I mean, fortunately, because Tuhin had written a very beautiful book, and beautiful in the sense that his book has a certain lyrical quality. It's kind of, it's really, it's like a movie unfolding. So it was very easy to get into Birsa's land, Birsa's life, Birsa's head through that book. So that was a great kind of point for me. And after that, it was not very difficult, because once you kind of get to know the person that you want to write about, then things kind of flow, because then when you're doing research, you are able to cull out the material that you need, with a lot of ease, because the background has been set. So I think that has helped me a lot. And after that, of course, I did I got a few books and did research, and I've got membership of certain libraries from where I could download some really old books, about the Munda tribals as such, and basically the tribal history of the country. Because what happens is, you can't just write a biography of a person, by reading just one or two books. You have to go way beyond, understand, where they came from. So it's it has to be really in depth to make a small book. So what I normally say is that you have to do a really mountain of research to bring out a tiny little book. So yes, there was a lot of research, and I always enjoy research, so I wouldn't call it a challenge. It was fun, and writing it was very nice, because I learned about this kid, Birsa Munda. Oh my God, he was really phenomenal. I mean, the way his brain was working is something that was so inspiring, and that's what I've tried my best to bring out in the book, so that the reader, the child, is able to identify with this kid and kind of start thinking like Birsa, how he was observing how his, teachers also remarked that his understanding is something, way beyond the students of his class. Like how he would put things together, uh, analyze, assimilate, all that, all those qualities were really very mature qualities in a child like Birsa when he was in school. So all those things are quite fascinating. So I tried my best to bring that out in the book, and I think the illustrations have also helped a lot because the book is beautifully illustrated, beautifully designed, and that is kind of, that adds to that evocative uh, feel of the entire text. It adds a lot to it. So overall, I think it was I would say a team effort. We had good publishers, we had a wonderful illustrator, a great designer to put all these things together. And of course, Tuhin was there to, kind of rap us on the knuckles if it did anything wrong. So that's good. That's always good to know that there is somebody who's kind of who's going to tell you if you go wrong, because you can't go wrong. You can't afford to go wrong. As far as these characters are concerned.
So right. You brought, I would say, history to life for younger audiences. But how did this book really, you feel, inspire? You mentioned a bit of it, but how do you think it's going to really inspire India's youth?
It will. You see, I have been writing a lot on mythology, and all my work has been to kind of simplify mythology, demystify it in a way that it becomes relatable. And here I see that Birsa was doing something similar. He was talking about Mahabharata and Ramayana and Gita, and he was talking about the epics that he had read when he was with Anand Pandey, and he assimilates them, and he's kind of taking out the essence, and that is something which, in any case, I have been doing through my book. So for me, it's kind of an extension of what I'm doing, and I think that this will definitely click in the sense that it'll. Because of the simplicity, I guess the simplicity of the language and the simplicity in which, I mean, for instance, I can give you an example from here. For instance, when he was a kid and his teacher used to tell him stories from Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now, I'm talking about Jayapal Nag when he was a kid and he was being taught by this guy. Now, here, one day, I'll read the sentence. One day he surprised his teacher by comparing the British administration and the landlords to Ravan. Now, look at the way Birsa's mind was working. Now, obviously, if the reader is reading and is able to relate to Birsa, then they will definitely imbibe this kind of thinking, analytical thinking, and putting things in perspective. And so that is something which we learn from this book. We learn from Birsa how to use our heritage, how to make use of our cultural heritage. That's what he did, and that's what he was promoting all the time. He was telling tribals to get back to their own religion, the ones who had converted, and that was something very important. But at no point of time he was condemning anyone, any religion. In fact, he studied Hindu scriptures. He studied in the Christian missionary school. He had the tribal background. He had three religions within him. But at no point of time did he say that, this is wrong. He only kept on saying that you stick to your roots because that is where the strength comes from. Now, that is something I think, this is what the inspiration is going to be from this book.
Absolutely. That is what really shaped his personality. Imagine him going away at the age of 25, but learning much more beyond that. I think combining multiple lifetimes in such a short span of time, I would say that is because of the influences that he had. Coming back to Tuhin, you're more into shaping contemporary India. So how do you see his legacy resonating in contemporary India, I would say? Maybe a wider
Well,
vision.
the society today, especially the tribal society, is grappling with the same challenges. Predatory proselytization, forced conversions are as big a problem today in tribal areas, in rural areas, as they were 150 years ago. So I guess, that is where the learnings from Birsa Mundaji's life becomes very important. And, you know, um, I guess it's also got to do with with making the tribal students, with making students across the country know about their prized legacy. Because when I travel to, the village of Birsa Munda, or when I travel to some of the other adjoining tribal areas, to my shock, many of the tribal children were not even aware of the great contribution to our freedom struggle by their ancestors. So history in our country has been written in a very colonial manner. While a lot has changed in the last 10 years, there is an attempt to clearly highlight the contribution of unsung heroes. I think a lot more needs to be done over here. And if it happens, the tribal students would grow up with a greater sense of belongingness towards the country. They would grow up with greater feelings of self-worth and be able to, excel more in life. That's my personal reading of the situation. Before I proceed, let me just, before I forget, and take this opportunity to thank two people. One is my co-author on The Legend of Birsa Munda, Ankita Verma. A lot of the initial research of that book, which Sunita ji is referring to, had been done by her. And secondly, KP Nair, the present publisher, Monarch Publishers. I think he's an extremely passionate person when it comes to new stories, when it comes to new ideas, and the way he has nurtured this book, especially in terms of its illustrative work, the new illustrations that have been infused over here. I think hats off to him.
So very right, because it's very attractive to the children who are going to read it, the younger people, the younger generation, that it is finally going to, coming to the legacy part and everything. Tuhin, one more question related to that. How did you think Birsa's movement influence tribal identity and rights in India? I know you've spoken about it a little more on that. How it is going to really influence
So, the
taking
thing
it
about
forward.
tribal history is that many of these tribal freedom fighters, many of these subaltern freedom fighters were eventually acknowledged many years after their death. So while Birsa Munda passed away in 1900, in the year 1900, under some very mysterious circumstances, in 1908, the Britishers passed a landmark legislation called the Chota Nagpur Land Tenancy Act, which for the first time gave land holding rights to tribals. And when researchers studied various aspects of this law, this legislation, they realized that from the time that Birsa Munda had led his revolution in 1899 and 1900, the Britishers were actually so vigilant, they were so circumspect that a similar revolution might take place again, that they went out of the way to find safeguards. Went out of the way to make sure that what can be done in terms of legislation to prevent a similar uprising in future. So while Birsa Munda may not have been alive in 1908 to witness the impact of his revolution, the impact was visible to people who were living in 1908 after his death.
Yeah.
So that is how, in many unknown ways, the tribal freedom fighters have influenced the discourse of the time. In fact, um, Birsa Munda's main revolt towards the end was against Father Hoffman, a German priest who was mainly involved with large-scale conversions in that area. Now, obviously, because subaltern history has many missing links, and there is many of the things remain unauthenticated. It is quite possible that Father Hoffman had multiple, had a more layered personality, because in 1908, when this landmark legislation was passed, Chota Nagpur Land Tenancy Act, it is believed that Father Hoffman was an important part of the discussions which preceded it, and he was in favor of this legislation. So while he has been demonized by tribals, or while he was truly a villain when it comes to forced conversions, probably he had other aspects to him, or he had more layers to him, which had him participate in negotiations and play an instrumental part in getting the Chota Nagpur Land Tenancy Act. So, yes, I mean, many of these stories require more research. What these books, what tribal revolutionary Birsa Munda does is it basically sows the seeds
Yes.
of information. I hope one of the kids or a few of the kids who are growing up reading these books, it would be a very fulfilling thing for me as an author. I'm sure for Sunita ji also, if one of them decides to pursue history and pursues Birsa Munda's life in the most non-fiction in real manner, which would probably require a research of at least 5 years, because that is how widespread his life was. Even in terms of geography, he lived in probably at least 15 different areas in that small span of life. So I do hope that these books inspire kids to take up history as a vocation and pursue these subjects professionally. They might have to invest a few years in digging out all the information, and that is when true justice can happen to these characters. That is how vast their lives are.
Absolutely. You've been very passionate about the subject of Birsa Munda, and when you speak, it shows. Sunita ji, as I read in your bio, your love for decoding mythology, simplifying its philosophy, and showing its hidden metaphors and practical application makes it very, very relatable to the readers from all the books that you've been writing. And your writing style is really known for simplicity and depth. So how did you balance historical accuracy with storytelling? How did you do the entire process?
With Tuhin's help, because this is something where we are, me, the publisher, banking on him to be helping us out with all the correct database, because as we hear him, how passionate he is about the cause, the extent to which he is interpreting Birsa Munda's legacy and story is way beyond even my imagination.
Yeah.
This is how vast he can go in terms of interpreting this book. For me, this book is a little book. This is about introducing Birsa Munda and hopefully other tribal revolutionaries to the children, and sort of setting history straight in matters that they should know, that there were other freedom fighters too, the unsung heroes. So that is my limited kind of view as far as Birsa Munda and other tribal revolution are concerned. But thanks to Tuhin's help, and he'll be with us for this project. So I'm hoping to churn out some more books. But coming to talking about how to maintain the veracity of the historical timeline, that of course requires just not simple research but cross research, because many times what happens is you get figures which could be different. So many certain dates are there which are kind of literally etched in stone, like birth and death, but in the middle the dates kind of are a little loose, like they vary from a couple of days, a couple of weeks. So there I've obviously been very ambiguous in the book, because children don't read those specific dates. But yes, I had to cross-check everything that I already had with sources, multiple sources, just to get the kind of order of events in his life right. Not just the dates, because dates you can kind of afford to be because you can say, okay, around about this time, between this time to this time. But the chronological order of events in his life, that was important, and that I had to cross-check with multiple sources, and also get into the background of, especially for the sake of the artist, to understand what kind of houses they had, what kind of clothes they wore, what kind of food they ate, because all that of research is also required to tell the artist what to draw, because it's when you're trying to give a biography to a child, you want to be as authentic as possible, as close to being authentic as possible. So a lot of stuff goes into it. Story is just one part. Story is just one part, which we already have. So we have to kind of add in a few things, and we have to be careful that the certain things the artist wanted to show, we couldn't show because we weren't sure if those things were available at that time. Yeah? So there are lots of these kind of interactions that happen when you're writing biographies of such people who were kind of 150 years ago, or around 150 years ago. So that was the kind of research. It was not just the story, not just the dates, but a whole lot more. So, getting, I mean, I've got a huge database of pictures of so many other tribals too. Just to have an understanding as to how they even looked. Because, one had to describe Birsa Munda and one had to describe the family members and how he looked different from the rest of them, because he looked different, apparently. So these are the things that kind of go into making a biography.
And
so
also
it's kind of a...
Yeah, please go ahead. And also because of the fact that perhaps at some point of time it might be recommended as a course book in the school. So I suppose it becomes all the more important to have authenticated data.
That's what I'm saying. The moment you get it into your head that this will go as a course material, and students are going to study this and will be, be tested on this, that is the time you have to be very careful in terms of what you're giving out. So every little bit, even the background, what kind of, if you're showing a river, if you're showing landscape, all that, one has to research and find references and, discuss that with the artist and the designer. Multiple things that go into a book when you're writing for children. It's a different world altogether.
Absolutely. I really just got into your world reading this book. As the presenter, Tuhin, what was your vision for the book? I mean, that's also very important to know. And how did you ensure that it stays true to its purpose? I know you both are.
Well, I'm glad I introduced Sunita ji into the tribal world. Otherwise, a good chunk of students would have. It would have been a travesty if a good chunk of students missed out her writing, and if she did not venture into this world. But like I mentioned, after the success of the Legend of Birsa Munda, the idea is to expand into multiple different books, and not just books, but also media. They include short films. They include probably, the rights of Birsa Munda have been acquired by a producer for the last 3 years. But like it happens in so many cases in the film industry, the work has not begun for various reasons. So the idea is to expand Birsa Munda into different worlds, to different audiences, and to maximize and optimize his outreach. Which, when I had a look at this book, I think the book has come out so well that it fulfills its purpose. Now, obviously, going ahead, I do hope that it will be translated into multiple languages. Mr. Nair, the publisher, is Malayali. He's very passionate about translating it into Malayali. So that would be a very interesting thing where the southern part of the country would also be acquainted with the greatness of the freedom fighter. So going ahead, like I mentioned, yes, I would want to see the story of Birsa Munda reach more and more homes, not just in India, but across the world. And hopefully we are headed in that direction.
Yeah, very well said.
And also I feel, this book, books like these are going to kind of incite the interest in children and their parents in terms of tribal history of a country, which is not there in our curriculum at all. We never studied anything about tribal. I mean, till I participate, I mean, I watched the program where he spoke about his earlier book, Birsa Munda. I had no idea. I mean, really, honestly, I had no idea how much, I had missed out. So, and really, that's a very, very sad thing. So, I mean, the hope is that books like these should make teachers, educators, parents, children, everyone take interest in our tribal history. And of every state, not just one or two, a bunch of states, but every state has tribals.
So I'll just take your leave, because Sunita ji will talk about the craft more passionately. I'll just take your leave as I have to enter another meeting. But yeah, it was great chatting, and I look forward to the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neeta ji. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Tuhin,
Sunita ji.
Thank you.
always for being there
Yeah.
for us. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Sunita ji.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes. Sunita ji, coming back to the book, I mean, were there any special aspects of Birsa Munda's life that you really found very, very challenging or perhaps
I,
rewarding to highlight?
yes, not challenging, but I would say they were very, I was very impressed. And that's why, I was talking about his childhood when the teacher noticed how he, was, how he understood as against other students, how he understood Rama and equated Britishers with Ravan. So these were the things I was extremely impressed by the understanding of this child who, and he was not even taught the scriptures, This is a small child in primary school who's listening to his teacher telling a story in the last period of the class about Ramayana, a story from Ramayana or Mahabharata, and he's assimilating it in a way that he's able to relate it to his surroundings. Now that is a quality that is very, very important to have. That impressed me, and that is what I've highlighted in very many places. Even when he grows up and he reads all the scriptures, he's actually imbibing all of them. I mean, he talks about Rama, and he wants people. I mean, he's talking to his tribal, not just, I wouldn't say family, but the tribal in general. And he's encouraging them, telling them about Rama, and he's talking to them that look at how, Ram looked after his people. And then he talks about Mahabharata, and he says, look, it teaches us how to fight for our rights. So can you imagine how this child, and he was still young, he was not even 20, and he's talking like this. Look at the level of his thinking. That was extremely impressive to me. And that is what actually and I have showcased it wherever I could find those incidents. I actually put them in the book so that they're there for readers to be impressed by as I got impressed.
Absolutely. You put in a lot of anecdotes, you put in a lot of learning for the little ones. And I suppose that is that's how you normally do, and you've carried it forward to Birsa Munda, this book. And do you think, because now, as you also mentioned during the course of the interview, that you got exposed to the tribal heroes and those. So do you think further this book will contribute to the discourse on other unsung heroes? Because before
one more thing before I forget.
Yes,
Now,
sure.
when Birsa, after he came back from the prison also, when he was telling the tribals to sit down and discuss the problems, and then, he would make a list and present to the Britishers, to the admin. The demands that he listed out, they were, so perfect. Like, he was talking about that tribals should not be slaves to anyone, things like that everyone should be treated equally, they should be allowed to enter the temples. These were very, you would say, logical, very, very logical demands, and very humane demands. So, and this was done 150 years ago, more than 150 years ago. So can you imagine the kind of thought process this person had, how advanced his brain was functioning? So that is something, that I feel had to be showcased. And it's extremely relevant even today, as Tuhin mentioned. So his entire story, if you remove the dates, it's extremely contemporary. Yeah. So, and he's talking about nature, he's talking about learning from nature, he's talking about going back to the roots, he's talking about respecting the elders. I mean, he's talking exactly what we also talk. This is how contemporary he is. So that is what I think it will make it very relatable.
And do you think, as I was asking you, that it contributes to the discourse on other unsung heroes? Because
yes,
this discourse got opened up, we've been talking about the constant references. There is so much of awareness about him, and And I wish, and what do you think about it? I mean, there'll be discourse on other unsung heroes that we don't really know about.
Definitely, that is what I'm hoping, because even we are planning to work on a series, of 4 books, and we are planning to. We are talking of 4 now, but I'm sure the series will go on and on, because we do have a lot of tribals, and not just unsung heroes, not just revolutionaries, not just freedom fighters, but I think this will open up discourse about the tribals as such, the people, because it's a very, there's a rich culture out there, that is the only thing that people know about tribals probably is some kind of art, some jewelry perhaps, isn't it? But there's nothing much that we know about tribals. And so I think that it not just the unsung heroes, but I think it'll make people sit up and look towards the tribes of our country. Some of them are lost, some are still around. I think that is very important, and to kind of put a spotlight on them. Because history is not just the people who are recorded, who's out there, whose record is in front of us. There are people who were not recorded, who were not talked about, but they were there. So I like to bring those things to light,
And what's your guiding light on this? Or maybe if you could throw a spotlight that how can other authors, or maybe author community, the presenters, and maybe also the platforms like us, they can contribute this movement of bringing out such stories, such untold stories. How can we all as a community work towards it?
You see, the only way I see is to have more and more discussions about these topics, and that's why I talk about not just the heroes. I talk about the culture. I talk about I can go on. I mean, the therapies, they were pagans, I would call them. They worship nature. They would heal using plants. We have our Ayurveda, which is a documented science, I would call it. And but then there is a science that these people follow, which must be, I'm sure, very close to Ayurveda. When they are using herbs to heal, they use sound to heal. So you see, there's a tremendous treasure out there. So unless and until we have more and more discussions about the hidden treasures of our country, and it's a huge country. If you just pick up one state, you'll find there is so much there. So once we start getting into that mode of digging, going back and finding heritage, cultural heritage, uh, that is something that can be created only by discussions, because nothing else. Because these days people want to, their attention span is so reduced. They want everything in like a couple of seconds or maybe a minute max. So if we can generate this kind of material for people to absorb, then I guess we would create some kind of change, because that interest will be generated only by creating media which is telling them that this is what we have in our country. So to create that kind of momentum in the thought process, I think that's very important, because going back to the roots is always a good idea, because that's from roots only we draw our strength, isn't it?
And so right.
Yeah, and people are forgetting the roots. Everyone is forgetting the roots, and then now they're coming back. So people, they've migrated and then they are coming back. It's like ghar wapsi of sorts, isn't it? Going back to the roots. So this is also like ghar wapsi of sorts, going back to the roots, isn't it, in a way?
Absolutely. And I totally agree with this. And also the fact that you're catching the right age group, these are the people who are going to make a difference in future. And once they start reading such narratives, and that's why this book is so interesting to read, that's also
Yes.
very important, the writing style, because it has to go to the children, has to go to the young generation.
Yes, that is the only way, I feel that I can communicate if I'm speaking in the language in which I speak to the people who are, say, 20 to 40, even when I write books for the masses, the general market, in my head, I'm addressing the age group 20 to 40, because that's the age group where, uh, lots of people are still floundering. They are not really settled. They don't know if, whatever, and many of them don't know the path they've taken is it right for them or not. There's a lot of confusion. They're supposed to be adults and mature and everything, but a lot of them actually are not. So there's a lot of chaos in the heads of this particular age group. It's and they are looking for things to stabilize them. So that is the age group that I feel should be targeted by writers, because that's the age group that's going to be that's very open to listening and to reading and to watching. Because beyond a certain age, when people are kind of set in their ways, settled in lives, then they are already settled and set in their ways. They are not likely to change very easily. And before that, they're still struggling to, get educated, find a job, and so on and so forth. So, less than 20 and more than 40, I feel are kind of, difficult to crack. But this is where I find there is tremendous attention span that I like to, speak to. This is the age group.
We go towards our last two questions, and one very important question, and I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss about your writings. I mean, it is amazing. It was like a revelation knowing that you've written more than 40 books and perhaps, I don't know, hundreds of writings. Yeah.
Yeah, for children, I've written
Oh my God,
1,000
such
books. Yeah.
wonderful books you have
Yeah.
written. I would like to go through all if I get this opportunity to read. Please tell us something else too about your journey and how it's been for you. I would definitely like to take this opportunity to discuss your writing journey. Yes.
My journey has been extremely exciting and very adventurous, because I started off, I was a science student. So this you see again, I find that whatever we study, whether in school or in college or wherever, it always helps us. I've been a science student. I studied science in school and I studied nutrition. And so my thinking is very, I would say, scientifically, scientifically oriented, you can say, or research based. Like, I would do a lot of research. I would make notes. I would, come to conclusions. And my writing is something that, in school you would learn how to write précis. We had to condense, an essay of 250 words to 25% of it. So that is something, which I like doing, to be very precise. And because I don't want to waste a lot of my time and my readers' time in giving a whole lot of extra stuff. So I like to be very precise. So these are things that, I picked up from life. And because I used to read a lot, I could connect things. So I use a lot of anecdotes in my writing. I connect things, to make them extremely normal. Like when I wrote Everyday Gita, I connected a lot of it to our everyday life. Gave examples from day-to-day life, shopping, studying, cooking, stuff that you do on a daily basis. So I kind of connect things together. And that is how I have been writing. So my writing started when I was writing on health topics. So it was to do with physical health. Then I went on to writing about mental health, because when you're writing, and you love to write, then the world is so vast to explore. So physical is connected to mental health. I started writing about that, about psychology, about relationships. Then I went on to spiritual health. So you can see the trajectory of my writing has been like body, mind, soul. And since everything is connected, it's the whole thing is extremely holistic. And while I was doing all the spiritual health writing, I was already interested in mythology. I started bringing mythology into it. And when I got married and had children, and I, saw that my children were getting the same books that I would get so many years ago, which was like Cinderella or Red Riding Hood and, those kind of Western stories, fairy tales. I decided to bring Indian mythology to that level. And that's when I created books for children based on Indian mythology to replace the Cinderellas and Red Riding Hoods and the Snow Whites, from the home libraries of parents. So that is how, like, it's like on a regular basis, I would find, see something, get an idea, and start working towards it. It's the same thing with Tuhin. I heard something from him, and I said, why not for children? Why not for this, this level of children, school level? So this is how I kind of, I would say, adventurous, because I find things to write on about. It's been just going on, and on the way, I would say I'm very lucky, very blessed that I've had great, amazing experiences with publishers. I've never had this experience of getting rejected by publishers, or that people talk about. So I was very lucky that for instance, when I first started writing, it was a patient of mine when I was giving diet counseling who told me to write, to start writing.
Yeah.
And then when I started writing, it started with columns on diet, columns on health. And it would be like I would be going home and I would see, a bhutta bechne wala, and the next article would be on bhutta. It would be literally, I would pick up stuff and then would write about it. So that is how I started putting whatever the thoughts would be, I would just put them down and make them into articles, and then I would make books. My books on health, which I wrote, like The Healing Power of Foods and all, are being used in universities in other countries that I came to know only thanks to social media, when people got in touch with me from those universities, not the publishers here.
Okay.
But the universities,
Actually.
in Netherlands, they actually got in touch and they said, we are using this book as a course material. Like one translator, translated one of my books into Farsi, Healing Power of Foods. She got in touch with me on Instagram. So this is how amazing the world is. And it's so encouraging. I mean, I feel encouraged all the time that there are people who are liking my work. There are publishers who want me to write for them. So, I mean, what more can an author want? So that's why my writing doesn't seem to stop. It just, I'm unable to stop because there's far too much to, write on. And even if there's I finish one project and I tell myself I'll take a break, maybe I'll relax for a month, then I'll get a call from a publisher friend who would say that, can you do this for us? And I just can't say no, and it just goes on. So that's how I've written so much.
What devotion to writing. And what an inspiration to all the writers. Sometimes there are a lot of people who wanting to write, tune on to our channel and want to hear such great authors like you.
So I give an open invitation to everyone that if you want my help, please get in touch with me. If you want, any kind of mentorship, please get in touch with me. If you want me to read your manuscript and tell you how to go about it, I can help. I can, edit. Lots of people ask me, I have this idea in my head, but I don't know how to write. Writing is so difficult. And I keep telling them that writing is not difficult. If you can think, you can write also. What is writing? It's our thoughts that we put on paper. The only thing is you need some practice, to give coherence to your thoughts. And that comes, by regular writing. Even if you maintain a journal, the coherence comes. And when your thoughts become coherent, your writing is kind of, readable. Otherwise, they're editors. I'm also an editor. Send me your work. I'll help you out. So that's something also I tell people. Because I think writing is extremely healing. I think it's a very cathartic journey, every book. And we are growing. With every book, a writer grows. There's so much reading that we do to write any one single book. There's so much reading that has gone into writing this slim book. A lot of reading, So we grow so much when we are writing. And, I think writing is a healing activity. It gives you a lot of peace of mind. And when somebody likes your writing, it's so gratifying. It is, जिसको बोलते हैं ना खून बढ़ जाता है. It's like,
No, I'm really grateful to Tuhin for introducing me to you. I'll definitely request you for a session on Everyday's Gita very, very soon. And thanks to
yeah.
Tuhin and this book that we are together on this, we are able to talk to you. Such a blessed feeling today. So any last words on the book? Birsa Munda, so passionate you are about it. You've done so much of hard work putting it together.
Yeah, actually, the more I see this book, the more I find that, the way the presentation, the
The
illustrations,
illustrations, fantastic.
the design, the whole thing, the kind of, it evokes so much, it's literally, if you see Birsa is released and there's this bird flying out of a cage, right?
Oh my God.
So you see how much has gone into making a book like this. So and that is why I get so passionate, because writing a book and seeing when it comes out and the product is so beautiful is something. It's a feeling that can't be described. So well, we'll be doing some more books. There'll be 3 more books coming out after this, at least, if not more. And I hope that other authors also join in writing these, because I'm not greedy, I'm not selfish. I would want other authors also to think about writing such biographies and books on tribal history, tribal culture, tribal heritage, and they could come and talk to Konark, or they could talk to their publishers. But I think this thing should happen. Like in mythology has suddenly picked up in the last few years. You find that everybody is writing on mythology, and mythology, just not mythology, but mythological fiction also, and for all age groups. And then you find movies also that are being based on mythology. So mythology is really huge, and it's a vast ocean. So, I mean, the more the merrier. You can have as many authors writing mythology. It's the same thing with this. I mean, I think just like mythology, tribal, heritage, tribal heritage also should be looked into by more and more authors. This is what I feel. And I would like to, request the authors who are watching this to, look into this also.
Absolutely inspirational words from your side. And as we wrap up this most incredible conversation, I'd like to extend my most heartfelt thanks to the brilliant minds behind this book. Tuhin Sinha, thank you for presenting travel revolutionary Birsa Munda and for bringing your dedication to India's most untold story into the spotlight, and the most talented author, Sunita Pant Bansal. Your elegant writing and meticulous research have really brought Birsa Munda's story to life, I would say, making it accessible and inspiring for generations to come. So it's been an honor to discuss the life of a leader who continues to inspire us with his courage, with his vision, and unwavering commitment to justice. Thank you both for joining me today.
I would say the honor is all mine. I totally loved this session, and I hope that we get to do more of such conversations to take this forward.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me
in
our
Thank you so
podcast,
much.
Trends Literature Series.
Thank
and request you all to subscribe to the channel so that we can have as many interesting conversations reaching the most, widest of audience.
Yes. This is a great medium. Podcasting is such a great medium,
Thank you.
and I'm glad, and I'll wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining in on a very, very cold evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.